Okay gang, here's a new project I'm going to be starting on this week, and it may take me a few weeks to get everything done, but it is a 72 Chevelle, and it's an SS clone. And the reason I know that is I checked the VIN because I want to make sure when I work on something that I'm putting on the right parts, you know, in case it was an original car. I want to make sure all those things are correct. But in this case, it's an SS clone. The code says it was a Malibu that came from the factory with a 350. In this case, it has SS badging. It looks great. It does have a 454 in it. It does have a 12-bolt rear end with ladder bars, and I'll walk around and show that. The car's in great shape. It's been painted several years ago, but it's holding up well. It's really a really good driver. But like I said, the owner wants me to do some things to it, so I'm going to help him out. So I'm going to walk around the car a little bit just to show you what I'm working with. As you can see, it does have the SS in the steering column, door panels, and these are a different type of seat. I mean, they're factory style seats, but it's got like a, I don't know what you'd call it, a velour, not really velour, but a terry kind of feel to it. I did notice the steering column is a tilt, and it's got some issues, so I'm going to take care of that too, because I know how to fix that, and I'll show you that. Otherwise, everything else is in great shape. Go around to the back, and you can see it has the SS badging, and I'm pretty impressed by the condition of the car because the whole trunk is nice, everything is solid, looks to be original metal, so that's impressive. The story goes, the man who owns it has owned this, he bought it when he was in high school, and that's great. He's had this car for a while, and the owner who had it, or the person he bought it from, had won it in a poker match, so that's kind of cool too. But he's had this car, and he hasn't been able to enjoy it much because of the brake problems. But like I said, it's in really great shape. Let's see if I can get this hood open. That's right, it's got the lower one. Hold on just a second. There you go. Big old 454. And you can see it's got there's a Ford solenoid up there, so there's been some modifications to the wiring. And the booster, master cylinder are a bit sketchy, leaking fluids. So I'm going to replace both of those. And I'm going to go through and check the brakes all around, and probably end up replacing calipers and wheel cylinders and all that sort of thing. And it runs good, but it does need a tune-up, I'll say that. And I'm going to change the fluids, tranny fluid, oil, antifreeze, all that sort of stuff. Pretty cool car. I'm glad to be working on it. And so let me get started on it, and we'll see how this turns out. Alright, as you can see, I've got it up on jack stands, and it's pretty obvious it hasn't been driven much in a while. There's a bunch of cobwebs and stuff on the caliper up front here, and in the back I started pulling the brake drums off, and all of that fell out of the brake drum. So obviously shoes aren't sitting right, they're all worn out, and there's a bunch of debris and junk in there. All these springs were just laying in there, so and this one is all twisted off. That's not good. So it's going to need a spring kit, and like I said, I'll probably go ahead and just replace the wheel cylinders and calipers, just put all fresh stuff on there and replace the spring kit and everything else. But yep, that's not good. Okay, since I started on this driver's side rear brake drum, I thought I'd show you where I'm at. I couldn't show you much with the disassembly simply because too many pieces were missing, and typically when I do a brake job on a classic car, I try to do one side at a time. And the reason I do that is if I do miss something, I have the other side to reference. So I don't pull anything off of the other side until I get one side done, at least on the brake drums. Calipers, it doesn't really matter, it's the same thing. But so I really couldn't show you anything. But what I did do was remove the wheel cylinder, and there's 2 bolts. It goes through those 2 holes, and in this case they were 3/8, little 3/8 bolts. And also the brake line itself is 7/16. And I used a line wrench. That's a line wrench to take that apart. That's not the one I used, but that's what they look like. Okay, so here's the wheel cylinder, and it's got corrosion inside. It's rusty. You can see here's the pistons, a lot of rust on them. And you know, in the old days it was real easy to buy a kit for these, maybe hone them and replace it, as you know, replace the pieces internally. But as cheap as these are, I'm just going to pay for new ones, or actually rebuilt ones. Saves you the hassle going through all the process of honing and then buying the components and putting it all back together. So these little bolts, like I talked about, they went in those upper holes right there. Okay, all right. So from there I went to the front and I removed the caliper. Now the caliper is pretty easy to remove. There's two bolts, and they have an Allen head, and it's a 3/8. And I have a tool that looks like that. You could also use a regular Allen wrench, but this tool is pretty handy. I don't even know who makes this. This was a generic tool that I bought. So I removed the 2 bolts and pulled the caliper off. Well, in that process I noticed that the hose that feeds the caliper is all cracked. So obviously I'm going to replace this hose as well, and I'm not even going to mess with these calipers. You can see they've been on there a while, and I couldn't tell you the internal condition. And again, you used to be able to buy kits, rebuild these, maybe save yourself a little bit of money, but anymore it's not worth it. Take the core in and get when it's already built, and you're done. So then once I did all that, I primarily did that to start draining the brake fluid, because I separated the line up here, again 7/16, and this little clip here, this little horseshoe clip, slips over this right here. And basically this goes into that bracket I was showing you, and then this clip slides over that. So from there I started draining the master, or I drained the master cylinder of all the fluids, and internally this thing is just nasty. So at this point I will break loose these 2 lines. In this case they're 9/16, again using a line wrench so you don't round off the head of the line, the fitting there. And then I will go and remove the caliper, the master cylinder and the booster as an assembly. Along with that I've got to pull this out, and I may take a screwdriver and put behind it. That is your vacuum boost. It comes from the carburetor, and that just slips in, so that'll come out pretty easily. Now let me get set up and I'll show you what I have to do inside the car. Thankfully I've got a little, the interior light works, but I'm going to use my flashlight here as well to show you there's a clip on the brake pedal, and it's right up there. See if I can, it's hard to do here, not a lot of space, but that clip, if you can see it, it slips over a pin and then it snaps back on itself. So basically, and again I'm not going to be able to show you all this, you take a screwdriver and push that first part of the clip out, and then it slips up and over that pin, and then the pin comes out of the brake pedal, and then it frees the arm that goes to the brake booster. So I'll take that apart and show you some more detail if I can. Okay, there's the clip and the pin, and you see that clip has a little bit of a hook on it, and in this case I've got it already released. If I were to push it with my thumb here, it would snap over and lock onto that little bit of a ring that's cut into the clip. But in this case I can push it backwards and it comes right off. So you have to separate that a little bit. Be careful you don't break it, and that's all it takes to get that clip off. So now what I'm going to do is get the master cylinder and booster loose, and the bolts are back behind that booster. Kind of hard to show you from here, but there's I believe there's 4 bolts back there that have to come off, and then that whole assembly will come off, and again once I remove the brake lines. Okay, it's the end of the day for me, but I'm going to show you where I'm at with progress. I decided to remove the master cylinder simply because it gives me a little more room and it's less bulk or weight to have to pull out of here in one shot. So the bolts that are back here that I really have trouble showing you on the camera are 9/16, and it took quite a while to turn them because I couldn't get a ratchet wrench on them, and a ratchet socket won't work, so it has to be a regular wrench, and it's going to take a long time because you do little turns. So when I started to pull the booster away, I noticed that the hard lines moved with the booster. And what I found was there's a little bracket that mounts to the side of the booster bracket that holds these two in place. So I took a 1/2-inch socket and ratchet and got that loose, and so now the booster should pull out of here. Should. But maybe not. Up there it went. Okay. So there's the clip that attaches to the brake pedal arm. This is that little bolt that I was talking about that holds the bracket for the hard lines, and of course these are the mount holes. So now that I have this off, that takes care of that part of the disassembly, and I can move on to other things. And I think I may have shown when I took the caliper off that line is bad, so of course we're going to replace that. I don't remember exactly what I filmed, but I think I did. So anyway, that's it for progress at this point on the Chevelle, and hopefully I can get some parts coming and start putting things back together soon.